Hey guys, Dan here, and alongside Joe, aka Merlin, for a new segment, another new segment. We keep pumping them out,
So many segments. It's almost like a different story every week.
and all the yes, it's it's funny you say that
Mm-hmm.
because a different story every week. That it says to me anthologies,
That's right.
and so we are doing Dan Reviews It presents the Anthology Zone,
Mm-hmm.
and that's because we're going to be talking about not just the Twilight Zone, not just Alfred Hitchcock Presents,
Mm-hmm.
but we're going to talk about all of these different anthology series from the 50s through today. And that can range from, we're not going to do like the old dramas that they used to do, like when they would run 12 Angry Men or something, but
No.
it's going to be based in sci-fi, fantasy, adventure,
Yeah.
horror. So we're going to do things like Tales from the Crypt, Amazing Stories,
Mm-hmm.
In Search of, Goosebumps,
Ooh, that'd be
even,
cool. Yeah.
which I think is probably on Paramount Plus now. So, but look, we got to start with the cream of the crop,
Absolutely.
the best of them all. We all know that that's the original Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
So we decided to now. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna randomly, through the use of one of those random number generators,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to just pick an episode. But for this first one, it's a specific. This is going to be episode 1 of the Twilight Zone, and I think that makes sense.
Sure, I'm fine with that.
So it's called Where Is Everybody? And you, of
Ah,
course, had seen this many times.
at least once.
I'm sure I probably saw this when I was a kid, but not since then for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of these. Now we watched it with a group
Yeah.
because there was a few people over when we watched it, and I really could not believe how strongly, and I guess I could believe it, but how strongly this still holds up.
Wow, you're surprised that Twilight Zone
And,
is
and again,
actually so
I'm not.
good?
Hold on.
Why?
I shouldn't say I'm
Who
surprised,
could have thought that?
but I just
Even the pilot,
it
rough.
always that's kind of what I thought. I was like, this is the first episode.
Can't be
Like,
that good.
it could be maybe okay, but like,
Wow.
boy, they hit the ground running on this one.
Which I think maybe it was Peter or somebody said that it's kind of just maybe you said it. It's kind of amazing that we'll get into it, but such kind of a high concept, cerebral, but also weird and disturbing show could be
Yeah.
mainstream in the 50s.
I think Peter and I were sort of going back and forth on that with each other, but yeah, like I
weird.
think this is what 1959,
I think when it started,
October 2nd, 1959.
well, there was nothing like this in 1959.
And there were radio plays
Mhm.
like War of the Worlds that had sort of this weirdness factor, and obviously there were a lot of radio shows that also were like this. And I believe Alfred Hitchcock Presents came on in 55, so that was already
Okay.
on.
Okay.
But like this is next level.
Yeah.
Like we understand, Alfred Hitchcock, that was like a suspense show more than anything.
Sure.
This is for sure like really digging deep into
Contemporary issues and
contemporary issues, leaning into the sci-fi,
philosophical stuff.
Yeah, this is really. I'm
it's just
surprised this was on
because
television in the
just
50s.
when you think about the landscape of TV in the 50s,
Yeah.
this is not.
Here's what I think
it
of.
Just
I
stands
think
apart.
of Leave It to Beaver,
Sure,
and
yeah.
those types of family shows. Then for your dramas, I think of maybe Dragnet, like
Dragnet.
shoot 'em ups and Western shows.
Yeah,
I don't think of anything like this.
it's just so such an outlier.
I'll tell you what I think of about this. I think of mid 60s
Mhm.
as the home for this type of stuff because
Yeah.
that's when Star Trek came on.
But hey, without this, I don't know
There
about-
would be no
there
Star
would be
Trek.
no Star Trek.
So all right. I guess since this is just a
All
new
of it-
segment,
yeah.
we'll do what we usually do though. We'll have you sort of describe the plot of this particular episode,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll go over some of the basics. Well, no, I guess usually I go over the basics first.
You go into
Of the-
basics.
the,
Did you look at
um,
any features?
Oh,
or
I
anything?
sure did.
Then you do that
So
after.
I watched a couple of there's 2 different commentaries on this.
Nice.
But so yes, I guess we could talk about that later. So
Some
let's
background
hear
stuff.
from you
Oh.
about the concept
Well, the
of this episode.
the concept, I mean, my job's usually pretty easy, but
Mhm.
where is everybody? As the title implies, there's this gentleman. Seems like he's kind of a drifter. He just wanders into this town, and he doesn't really have any memory of who he is. It seems like he's going through some amnesia, but he still has a concept of society, houses, cars. He's like, okay, it's like a diner. And he wanders into this town, and there is nobody around. He keeps thinking he's hearing people or seeing people, and he just keeps missing things. It's like a shadow or a noise or a mannequin. There's nobody around. But as things keep building, he starts to kind of seem like he's losing it and suspecting that he's being watched. And really, the episode is just him kind of slowly being broken down by the loneliness and the paranoia. And then we give spoilers, I think.
Yeah, I think we can make this a spoiler show. So explain what happens. What's the twist with this particular?
The twist is basically.
Or should we not break it down?
See, if you've never seen the Twilight Zone,
this is just live thinking here.
Well,
we're just going off the cuff.
Here we go. Look, this is what most YouTubers do. Okay,
we're gonna say spoilers here.
Here is the spoilers. If Dan wants to put a tag for the time,
maybe find out. Advance a few minutes or something.
2-3 minutes, and you'll have less of it spoiled. But basically, the twist is that this guy has actually been tested. He's an astronaut who's going to be tested for a flight to the moon. But they want to test what basically that isolation will do to the mind. They've got him hooked up to all these things, sort of.
And he was in there for weeks,
like 2-3 weeks, something like that. And then they said after a certain point, really his imagination just started to kind of take control, and he lost all sense of where he was and everything. And it was just they got him out of there and said, okay, you're ready to go to the moon, and this time you really will be alone. So it's like, okay, which of course feeds into a lot of the Cold War.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is obviously before we even got to the moon. So yeah, Cold War style for sure.
But once again, this just kind of hits it on the head. And the themes I love about the Twilight Zone is just not afraid to go there. It's just one compelling idea of just how long before that basic need for companionship for people breaks down. What will remind you to try to kind of keep you being sane, make you insane.
Yeah.
It's
absolutely. And so there's only really the one main actor in this
who you knew from
who I recognized from Earl Holliman.
Good on you.
Who I had recognized the name. I said, why do I know that name? So our buddy Peter, pulled up the IMDb or whatever, was scrolling and mentioning things. He was the star of a 70s TV show, but I never watched it. It was like one of those action shows. I think it was Policewoman. Uh-huh. He was like the male star. Oh. But I looked it up later, and no, he had been on almost 100 episodes as guest panelist on the $10,000, $25,000 Pyramid.
Oh.
So he was a game show star, which a lot of the famous actors of the 60s and 70s, mostly now from game show reruns, because by the 80s, that's sort of, they were on the way down in their career, and that's sort of what you did, Hollywood Squares or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I recognize this name, which is kind of wild. But cool. But yeah, it turns out he was a very accomplished actor for many decades. And I forget, I should have written it down. He said somebody in the commentary they had offered the part to, but they wanted too much money. So they said no. But I do know that the narration. Okay, so Rod Serling is the narrator, right?
Yes.
But in this particular episode, in the original version, not Serling.
Okay. That sounded kind of like him.
It was it's him on the DVD.
Oh.
But there is an alternate audio clip where you can see the original. And so the original was this guy Westbrook Van Voorhees. Okay.
Any relation to the slasher?
I don't think so.
Jeez.
I don't think so. He was most known for radio programs at the time. Oh, and he said, a voice of doom, he was called. Time marches on, he would say. That was his catchphrase.
Okay.
All right. But who they actually wanted first was our friend Orson Welles.
Ah, yeah, he would want too much money.
And he wanted too much money. So they said, all right, well, forget it. Let's go with this Westerbrooks guy. But then, after the show got picked up, they thought, you know what? Let's better put Serling himself on it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, now the version that you would see is with Serling. But they also changed the phrasing a little bit, because they talk about the sixth dimension and all of that. But now we know, we journey into the fifth dimension or past the fifth dimension or whatever it is.
They don't really have the intro yet or anything.
Yeah, it was like much like this show, cobbling it together as we go. But yeah, so basically, let's see, here we go. The episode featured Westbrook. He was unavailable for later episodes is what happened. Okay, very good.
If you want to go for voice work, he's one of those people for narration.
I would say so.
I am Orson Welles.
And they filmed it on the Universal lot. I had noticed that it was the Back to the Future 50s set with the clock tower and all of that.
They get a lot of mileage out of those sets, don't they?
I know. I looked up like all the things it was in, and it's been in so many different things over the years. But the other thing I thought was real interesting was, so there was a novelization of a handful of the episodes a little bit later, and this was one of them. But Serling felt that as the years went on, the sci-fi element had sort of been abandoned a little bit more for more type of fantasy and more allegorical type stories. Morality tales. So in the book version, he has at the end, Earl Holliman's character, as he's on the stretcher going away, he pulls out a movie stub from the movie that he saw in his brain.
Oh,
what does that mean?
Whoa.
Yeah, so
yeah.
bringing a more of a sci-fi bent to it of like, okay, so now we're thinking that did really happen, that kind of thing.
Wow.
All
right.
Changes the theme, I think, of the story, but
yeah.
all right, but look, this is great.
Yeah.
And I really, as we were going on and on, because I didn't know what the ending was. I didn't know how it resolved. I didn't know what really was happening. And I was, out loud saying, like, what is going on?
Yeah,
what is that? I was really into it.
I liked how into you were.
Man.
And the funny thing is, and I think what we would see this about Twilight Zone and maybe a lot of these other shows, is that there's something really unique about Twilight Zone that stands out. For as old as it is, you could say, all right, maybe it seems a little corny, but there's sort of this creepy, otherworldly uniqueness to it that I think it's still creepy. Like you were actually like worried about this guy, and you're like, I'm getting creeped out by the situation because maybe you really felt like you could be there, and you could feel like if I was there, you're like, I'd do this.
Well, because it seems like it seems like a nightmare scenario. Like it seems like look, the easy choice, the Saint Elsewhere version would be, it was all a dream, or it was all inside a snow globe. But they didn't do that here. They gave us a concrete, no, this is what's really happening. But as you're going through it, like I was putting myself in the mindset of like my father, who would have been 9 years old when this came out, and just like completely mind blown about what I was seeing.
You know what? I can feed into that a little, because I actually grew up watching Twilight Zone sometimes on reruns if it was on cable. It might be something if I could, like Sci-Fi Channel do those marathons.
Right.
I might find myself
New Year's marathons, yeah.
I'd watch some episodes. And I would often find myself transfixed, but if I was like alone in the basement or something watching Twilight Zone, I'd be creeped out. Like I remember, and I remember this episode specifically because I saw it one time, and it was the one that I remembered scared me the most. It was one of the scariest because, I think just being alone as a kid watching it,
right?
I kind of could almost relate to this person. So I kind of connected with it, and I always remembered the eye when you kind of see the panning on the window. I always think of associating that with later on the intro. Sometimes has that eyelid opening up.
Oh yeah,
that always scared me.
How about the cigarettes still burning in the police station?
Like somebody was just there.
Right.
How about the doors closing on him?
The doors closed, and then I thought he was going to get trapped in that jail cell. I thought that was going to be the end of it, and he was stuck there forever or whatever.
I'm pretty sure that's an ending of an episode somewhere.
I'm sure it is.
No.
I'm sure it is. But he heard me, and he got out of there, so that was fine.
Thank you, Danny said.
Yeah, he did. So I was stunned that this was as good as it was for the premiere episode of this show. Do you know what, by the way, Serling wanted the original premiere to be, the premise?
What?
So he had pitched that there was a world, and maybe they did something similar to this later, but at 60 years old, you die. And I don't know if you get executed or just your body shuts down because, you're past your prime and whatever. And CBS said that's a little too dark for what we were going for here.
Well,
so he eventually relented it and wrote this.
Well, that's the thing about Serling is, from what I understand about the Twilight Zone, like it was a fight the whole time because
I'm sure because nobody has ever done anything like this.
Because it was so weird and it was so dark, and he's really was wanting to challenge his audiences with these thought-provoking, difficult things. So that does not surprise me, and that's a classic sci-fi trope.
Yeah.
Cut them off at a certain age. Logan's Run, Soylent Green. What's in the food?
Yeah.
So
In Time, Justin Timberlake.
That classic. You know what?
That was a good movie.
I actually think it's okay.
It was a good movie.
It's okay.
All right. So, but the point is, this is. I just can't believe this is the first episode.
I think,
I mean,
obviously, I think well-crafted filmmaking, writing, but the atmosphere. But I think this actor's carrying it.
Yeah, Holloman's doing a great job, and he says he's deceased now. This box set's about 15 years old, but But one of the things he did mention, which I do admit is the probably one flaw I have with the episode, is that when he first sees the mannequin in the car, it's pretty obvious it's a mannequin. They could have, I think, done a little, because I knew, they could have done a little bit of, and he admits that on the commentary, that he sort of regrets that shot as the actor. But
I could kind of get behind that, but two caveats possibly. Number one, he's kind of losing his mind. So maybe they did a similar thing with I Am Legend, that other classic, where he's like...
I liked I Am Legend.
Yeah, it's okay.
Wait, is that him and the dog?
Will Smith, yeah. Will Smith,
okay.
Yeah, it's fine. But kind of something similar. And, once again, watching on your little TV back in the 50s.
I suppose that is true. This is on a DVD. Not that I have a big screen, but yeah, bigger than the 50s.
Might have added to it.
You know what? That's actually a good point.
Grainy,
Yeah, that's a good point.
Just saying.
Okay. Well, look, it made me want to it made me want to change the show entirely and just do Twilight Zones. But I think
I'm okay
it'll
with
be
that.
Well, I know. I think it would be more interesting to mix it up a little bit.
Well,
do some Tales from the Crypt.
No,
Tales from the Dark Side as well.
I'm cool with all those
these things.
Those shows too. But I will say that
talk about the gold standard here.
It was the origin of this because we wanted to do Twilight Zone, because I kept asking.
I think so.
So there you go.
I think so.
What was it I was going to say about the
good episode?
Good. Oh yeah, good episode. Did you want to grade it?
Oh yeah, we got to grade it, but I don't. Do we need to? I mean, it's A plus all the way.
I'll say I think it's an A plus. Yeah, plus classic. But from my memory, I do like and think that there are better Twilight Zone episodes.
Well, I know there's better, and there's certainly more classic.
So, I don't know. I would lean more towards an A.
No. For me,
A plus.
Well, and I've said this on my TV news and reviews a lot when I'm doing like full seasons or something. You have to you have to take the pilot, I think, at a little bit of a curve, because it's the first one. It's sort of setting the template.
Fine.
Sort of like Snow White back in the day.
No, it's
Set
fine.
that template.
I know.
We know Snow White's not the best.
I know. I think there's a lot of movies that are better than Snow White, but contextually, Snow White,
for this to be the first episode, I was just floored.
It's actually amazing how well it holds up.
Yeah,
it's just, you'd think.
Well, here's what I think of. Like when we just did the Juliet, Romeo and Juliet, and Hamlet.
Oh yeah,
Shakespeare stuff,
20, 30 years ago. Yeah.
Bad. Okay, but point being, there's only so many things from every generation and era that hold up.
Yeah.
Shakespeare, we're talking about his stuff 400 years later.
True.
Mozart, Bach, Beethoven, we're talking about their stuff
the hits.
Centuries later, the hits, right? I really genuinely believe that if we're still not you and I, but if the world is still here in 100 years, 150 years, I think there's going to be two things from the 50s in terms of television that are talked about.
It's the other one, I Love Lucy.
I Love Lucy. Yeah. I mean, it's just the truth. Yeah. I Love Lucy and the Twilight Zone.
Probably.
I think those are the things that are going to hold up.
Well, just think
in
about
200 years from now.
How long ago those shows came out and how iconic they both still are. People still will watch those on TV now.
70 years. I mean, there's literally Aaron Sorkin's new movie is called something Meeting the Ricardos, or it's about I Love Lucy.
That's awesome.
It's coming out in 2 weeks or whatever. I mean, people are still infatuated with that story and that show, and that being such a touchstone in television history.
And, if I may add, also connected to another film. I mean, rather, a film series and television series, Star Trek. Both.
That's right, because Desilu Studios put Star Trek on.
Yeah, I don't understand it, but hey, Gene, here's some money.
You're right. Well, talk about visionary. Ricky Ricardo was a visionary. All right, so, I mean, I think Twilight Zone is going to go the test of time 200, 300 years from now. I really believe that.
I could see it.
It's
got something there. It's also one of those things, there's nothing else really like it. As much as we'll see, nothing.
Yeah, a lot of things are going to try and match it.
The atmosphere. Every Twilight Zone episode has this weird dreamlike state that's perfectly Twilight Zone-esque. Mm-hmm. Nothing else is like it.
Yeah. And even the reboots couldn't quite capture. Some of the episodes are pretty great.
I like some of the 80s ones.
The 80s ones, some of those were very solid.
Forrest Whitaker had a few.
Forrest Whitaker had two that I remember liking.
Was one of them
Jessica Simpson, of course.
Yeah, uh-huh.
I only saw maybe 6 or 7 of them, but yeah, 2 of them stuck out to me.
They're fine.
And then I still haven't watched the Jordan Peele. I've heard so many mixed things about it, but that's on the list. We may I'm gonna
Sure.
roll the generator, and
Sure.
we may get a Jordan Peele Twilight Zone.
I think I saw the first one, actually. So we could do a different
I'd like to see the Kumail Nanjiani one. I like him. Star of the Eternals.
Oh, that's the one I saw with the...
Is he the comedian or something?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But anyway, it truly will be a different story every week. Our friend Tim came up with that title, and
Right.
we sort of nixed it. But it is true.
It is true.
It's going to be a different story every week.
If people want us to change it to that, we can. You know, like if this is this title is a bomb, I mean, you never know.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll see.
Well,
like I said, we're still figuring it out.
We're all figuring it out. Unlike Serling, who had it from the ground running, he just knew.
He knew, and I will say
that God bless him for it.
That is one thing in later episodes I like is his smug, cigarette type, whatever, just talking. Hello,
4.5 packs a day.
Like I could just listen to him introduce.
And what's his other show then? Was it Outer Limits?
Gallery?
Night Gallery. That's what it is. That's on the list.
I will say this briefly.
We'll see about Night Gallery.
As much as Twilight Zone is the cream of the crop, we just scrape it off.
You prefer Night Gallery?
Never seen.
Oh, okay.
I am actually, I think, a little more of an Outer Limits guy.
Outer Limits, okay.
The Outer Limits.
Well, we'll see. That's on the list as well. So
pretty much
there's many shows on the list. And with streaming now, more and more are popping up on different services and stuff. So that's always nice too.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have to just do my DVDs. But I do sort of like that most sci-fi DVDs do have like a lot of extra features because they know the fans are thirsting for it.
Yeah.
Tell us how you this is a great thing. I don't know if they still make these, but the Twilight Zone sets, and they have them on Blu-ray now too, so even more. But yes, you can watch these for free on one of them, probably Paramount Plus. But that's it. Dan Reviews It presents the Anthology Zone. We'll have some sort of theme for it.
I want to work on editing some weird thing.
We'll figure that out. But anyway, thank you for watching. Joe, as always, it's been a pleasure talking sci-fi with you. We don't talk about it enough on my channel.
I think in the coming weeks, months, we'll probably do a lot more.
We'll tackle some classic movies for 40th anniversary.
Thank you for allowing me to talk about some science fiction stuff.
Yes.
On your channel. That does make me happy.
All right. And thank you guys for watching. We'll see everybody next time. Bye.